Hi, Jacob Finkel. I'm here to do your opening of the key that you requested. Um, I just want to talk to you a little bit first before I start about the reading, the nature of the reading. And I'm sure you've um, read a little bit about it on my blog website thing. Um, but so you know, it is fairly long. It can take up to, it can take at its longest up to about 2 hours. Um, I try to go as quickly as I can, but it's really hard. It's also a very difficult spread in its own nature. So we do our best with it. um, it can also give you a lot of details that might not seem true or accurate, but they are relevant somehow. Sometimes it's stuff that you might not even be aware of. Or will not be aware of at the time. It is pretty good for projecting relatively far into the future. So it's for your question and the nature of your question is not really looking for a specific timeline. So the the results of this could be very interesting and could be very far-flung. It's sort of not going to be possible to say when things are going to happen or take place. So it is going to be an interesting reading. Now, there are 5 operations in which there are similar techniques, or rather the same techniques really, are used for all of them. And the same significator, as it's called, is used to represent you throughout all of the operations. And in your case, the court card that we're going to use to represent you being a Capricorn is the Knight of Discs, okay, or the Knight of Pentacles, coins, whatever. It's an earthy personality. So essentially what you do with each operation is you shuffle that significator into the deck, cut the deck into different piles according to the operations instructions, and then you look for the significator, and the pile that the significator is in is what is relevant, and you read only out of that pile. And the cards of that pile are influenced by the overall energy of that pile. So for instance, the first operation is governed by the 4 elements. You cut the deck into the 4 elemental piles. Second operation is the 12 houses of astrology. The third is the 12 signs of astrology. The fourth is the 36 decanots, or subdegrees of each sign of the zodiac of astrology. And the last operation is the Sephiroth, or the Tree of Life. And maybe you can help me with that, because I never understand whether or not you're supposed to pronounce, how you're supposed to pronounce TH in Hebrew. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a hard T, or if you are supposed to say th, like theta. I don't know. It always boggles me. My Hebrew pronunciation is very, very mediocre, so I tremendously apologize if I botch anything, especially when we get to that operation, but I do my best. Anywho, so that one is the most Kabbalistic out of all of them, and of course the Tree of Life, or the Sephiroth, deals primarily with, really it's a diagram of trying to express how something can come out of nothing, which is God, and how God emanates his perfection into the manifest world. And essentially it's totally a Neoplatonic idea that, you know, you start with perfection and eventually end up with a reflection of that perfection, but it's not perfect, being changeable, and all this stuff. So anywho, that is the overall setup of this. Between each one, we're going to invoke. And oh, I forgot to text you before I start, so I'm going to do that right now, actually. And hopefully you can send some positive energy my way, because Lord knows I need it at all times, really. Hang on one sec, let me just take care of this. Okay, so I just texted you. So I guess without further ado, we'll just start, and start by invoking. Also, to tell you a little bit about the invocation, because I think it's important that you know what I'm invoking. The invocation basically is an invocation of the one God, Iao, which in Greco-Roman magic was sort of associated with the Hebrew one God idea. Iao is always conjoined with Sabaoth. You always hear that in Greco-Roman magical texts dating back to really the first century AD, or CE rather. So it goes back a long way, and it's sort of gibberish, but it has always been connected with the monotheistic God in some capacity, Yao. I don't know why. And then it also it asks Yao or Iao to send the angel Heru, which is of course not a very angelic name, not ending in L or anything. But the angel traditionally is named Heru, Heru, or Hru in Hebrew letters. Heru is essentially considered the angel over the tarot, and an angel associated with divination. Also, an angel associated with the Holy Guardian Angel, which is attributed to the Algoides, or the higher genius, the perfected soul. Some people call it Christ consciousness, the idea of the incarnated Christ, basically. Dionysus is another attribution. Mithras is another attribution. So all of these sort of conflate together, and that is what, we will be invoking in between each operation. Okay, just so you know. So let's go ahead and start. It's going to be a little tricky for me. I have to do this on my bed because they take up the operations. Some of them take up a lot of space. And again, we're going to use the Knight of Discs as your significator. I invoke the Iao that thou wilt send Heru, the great angel, who art set over the operations of the secret wisdom, that he may lay his hand invisibly upon these consecrated cards of art, and that thereby we may obtain true knowledge of hidden things, to the glory of thine ineffable name. Amen. Our question for Jacob Finkel is essentially, how will Jacob continue to develop spiritually and emotionally? In what direction is he intended to go in life regarding his emotional self? How can he look to free up that personality more and experience greater freedom with his sense of self? Okay. So what we have here is the 4 elemental piles. And you have the devil in the fire pile, uh, the 5 of discs in the earth pile, the Queen of Swords in the air pile, and you, the significator, the Knight of Discs in the earth pile. And I think what essentially that says is that you are a very ambitious and focused person. You have a tendency as a Capricorn, bury yourself in your work and to block out all else. And this is, a detriment to your emotional life. You have, therefore, a kind of, I guess, an insecure sense of emotionality, I suppose. Your emotional life doesn't seem stable, or you lack confidence in it. You don't think that it's stable in any way. And the problem or the conflict you are having that might be connected to this is perhaps with a woman who is kind of sharp-tongued, I guess. It could be your mother to some extent, though it does not necessarily have to be. It can be just an experience with a female person who is possibly or has possibly been bitter in the past, and who has not always been kind or overtly kind. Um, the other thing is, well, let me see. Oh, that's interesting. It actually, it might not be that at all. Hang on here. It could be a representation more of your higher self. I don't know what your natal chart looks like astrologically, so I'm not sure what signs are in you other than Capricorn, or rather, what planets are in what signs. But the Queen of Swords could be an expression of yourself to some degree. She could be your anima in some case, based on the way she's aspected here. She has some very powerful attributions to her that can't really be ignored. Now, having a Queen of Swords anima means that your higher self would be more inclined to seeking out emotional situations that are rational, that are not, she's not the type of person who lets her emotions overtake her practical side or her logical side. She has an acceptance of her emotional side, but it is not without temperance, it is kept very much in check and is very much in balance with her more mental faculties. And I think you get left in the earth pile, as sort of still being mostly under the influence of the devil, I think, as far as focusing primarily on work and wanting sort of a deeper connection with yourself, but not being sure how to do it. You have a tremendous amount of earth here so far, and I think it's sort of saying that you need to not be so, not be so blind to it. I think the idea is that Um, Understanding ourself is a matter of observation and observing the things around us and the way we interact with them, and that's a big first step. But anywho, let's separate these out and read what this pile has for us. Make sure that nothing's hidden behind anything else. Okay. I'm actually gonna try to move that. This is the only operation that I can do this for. Okay, so you start here at this end, and it says that you've been very successful so far with your academic life. You have that area of your life has been very easy. You've always been a good student. Uh, you take great pleasure in that, and there's almost even well, you take also great pride in your academic work and the things that you like to learn about. 3, 4. And this is, I want to say that this has remained constant, that this is sort of something um, that has not really changed much about you, despite possibly some more other bigger changes in your life. This has been something that's always been true about you. Now, there is this woman who is more emotionally connected, it would seem, who also sort of has this fiery disposition as well. She seems like she can be a little bit of both. You know, she has kind of a fiery and passionate nature and a pioneering kind of nature, but she's also very emotionally tapped in, you know, and she's interested in more spiritual and more emotional things. Uh, and she, 2, 3, 4. And I think it says that you have gotten along pretty well with her. You have a good connection with her, and I mean, I would say that that represents your mother more. Having met and read your mother's cards, uh, you know, she sort of seems like she's there. So you have this fairly strong connection with her. It seems very solid in a way, like it isn't going anywhere. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At the same time, though, um, hang on. Just want to read ahead a little bit. Okay. This is when it starts getting tricky. Because we go from your mother, your relationship with your mother, to, uh, I mean, it seems like this is talking perhaps, I mean, it could be talking about two things. It could be talking about the divorce. It could also be talking about the idea that, you know, your connection with her is perhaps the inspiration that you are getting to want to know more about yourself in that capacity. Um, you want to review yourself, you know, because I think you see her as being this very emotionally connected person, and you don't see that in yourself, and maybe you're confused why, or you want to emulate that better. And the idea is that that is uh, uh, Hmm. It's very confusing. And I wish I didn't know about some of the aspects of your life because they're getting in the way. It's tough to read this without reading into it with stuff I already know. I'm going to pause this for a second and take stock, I think. Give me a minute. Okay, I think I know what I want to say about it now. I think what it's saying is more that your relationship with your mother has changed as you've gotten older and as you've gone through college and more education. And essentially it's led to this kind of, I want to say, insight into possibly yourself, or and it has to do, I want to say, with your independence, um, that you are looking to be at the same time independent from her, something like that. And to make your own decisions now that you are more of your own person. And huh, and there's also this need to kind of redeem yourself in a way after going through this very cataclysmic change, sort of the disruption of all that security that your family has always represented. You know, in its revision, um, you have focused on, in some ways, coming out on top, or trying not to worry about that, to be successful in spite of that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we come back to the Ace of Swords, which is kind of interesting. I just want to go and pair now, and then maybe I'll come back to the counting thing. Again, it says that you are very successful as a student. Success in academics comes very easy to you. But there was this rupture in one of the relationships that you have had, and it's sort of a big rupture, a big ending. It was unexpected. It wasn't pretty, and it sort of revealed things as they really were. And it did force you to try to find some continuity despite this great world change for you. I think it gave you a greater appreciation for your mother, or it sort of rekindled some love for her, provided this Queen of Cups figure is your mother, indeed. But at the same time, and I think that comes from understanding that she felt restricted in some way, or tied down from pursuing the things that were important to her, and that the stability of your family was not necessarily a good thing, at least for her, and that there was more sadness there than had seemed to be. Now, I want to say that this is probably, it could be your father as well. You've also stayed on very good terms with him. Um, and it seems like he's done pretty well, I want to say. Um, he's not entirely without sadness over this, um, but I think it says that he's kind of pioneered in a new direction and has done fairly well with that. And I think all of this is accumulating to this sense of needing to, I don't know, to I can't quite put it into words. It's almost like you want to see if you, you want to know what else is underneath yourself. In the same way that this situation with your family has kind of revealed the emotional underlying stuff of the people involved um, and their connections. You have sort of wanted to unpack yourself and see what is underlying all of your own stuff. Especially since you have kind of put a cap over it. And I think that's why, if you notice, you're not really involved in this situation. You seem sort of removed from it. And and it's almost like the reading is talking more about that situation than it is about you and your development. But I think what it's trying to say is that the two are connected, even though they don't seem to be. In the same way that you have focused on your material success, your academics, improving yourself in that capacity, that has produced a kind of security. And the idea is that there is stuff underneath that you need to express and let go of and deal with in order to be better off. Now, because of the issues surrounding, obviously this divorce was not easy, it might be a reflection of your fear of uncapping that. That in not wanting to, I think you're afraid of releasing some of that emotional stuff or energy because you think that in doing so it will be cataclysmic, because you have seen others unleash their emotional energy and watched it be cataclysmic around you, and deeply affect you and your sister, and the life that you had come to accept as normal, at least this is what I see, trying to connect this situation to your question, because it has to be relevant. And I think it is relevant, I mean, just seeing if there's anything else I can really pull from this. I mean, it's sort of a mixed bag here, as far as good and bad. It's sort of neutral in a way. And I do think that that's how you feel about this at this point. I know that you're probably not still really, what's the word I want? Mulling over this, I guess, or really meditating on how unfortunate this is or anything like that. But, obviously it's not entirely unsettled. Or rather, it's not entirely settled. Excuse me. It's still something that's obviously very much on your mind, and it's very much a part of your physical life, of your material life, not necessarily your interior life as a distinct personality, but it's definitely made a major impact on your reality, and again, what you have have considered normal in the past. So I think that concludes Operation 1. I'm going to pull the significator out again. And we're going to, excuse me, put that back on top. And this one again, I have to move it back over. This is the big one. I invoke thee, E-A-O, that thou wilt send Heru, the great angel, who art set over the operations of the secret wisdom, that he may lay his hand invisibly upon these consecrated cards of art, and that thereby we may obtain true knowledge of hidden things, to the glory of thine ineffable name. Amen. This is the second operation of the same question. It's tricky to make this into a real circle. So these represent the 12 astrological houses, or essentially the areas of one's life in which the situation is going to unfold. Or rather, I mean, really, because you really only read the pile with a significator in it, that essentially tells you in which area of your life is this situation going to most directly affect anything in the next stage of its development. And the cards tell you how, essentially. Really long-winded way of saying a pretty simple idea. Okay. Based on that, I sort of want to say that you might be here. You're not. Close, though. You might be. Right out there either. Hmm. Oh, I hate when I can't find it. Okay. You are in the fifth house, um, which is the house associated with Leo. And this is the house that describes one's, or rather represents the area of one's life in which we talk about the passions, the things that get you energized or excited about life, the things that you find artistic or I don't know. It can also be a sephira, a house associated with love and romance, usually of a more sexual nature to some extent. Leo being a very passionate sign. So we have you here, and it says that. Um, well, it's interesting. It says that despite having started this fresh new path in regard to the things that you're passionate about, you're still going to feel kind of, or rather, you still do feel kind of restricted and, in a way, just very limited, very compacted in terms of maybe your capacity for expressing that passion. Um, and really, it has sort of transformed into this sort of lethargy. It's sort of feels like things are good, but they should be better. And it partially, I think, does have to do with um, having to start over socially, and also, in a sense, in terms of your family as well. You know, it there's this idea of having left behind a community that you've been used to, and I think, it sort of, I want to say, feels like the ennui of post graduation from Vassar, and I totally relate to that. Let me tell you. It sort of just isn't quite the same, and it is good. You feel, you can say that you're happy where you are now, but you're not as thrilled as you thought you might be. 3, 4. So this means you've been sort of, honestly, you've been sort of a little foolish, is what it says. It says that you have been making kind of mistakes, excuse me, and sort of just silly mistakes. And you are, it almost says that you're kind of green at doing this. You are, it's very much a slow learning process, and you are um, very much fresh at this. it's almost just, yeah, I just, you're not necessarily that you're being foolish and that you're being stupid or anything like that. More just that you are, it's juice, by the way, not red wine, in case you were wondering. More just that you are very fresh at doing this, and it's sort of causing some problems, I guess, that make you feel even more limited, I guess. You know, it's also limiting your sense of happiness as well. 2, 3. And I think you realize that until you deal with that, you're not really going to be satisfied with where you are now. But at the same time, you know, you definitely have to take this path because this is the path you have chosen. And there's really no getting out of it at this point. But it does say that socially, it's probably been a little difficult for you. I don't think that you have necessarily made the same kinds of connections that you had. Oh, it looks like you have been trying, but not really. You haven't really been successful in that area. And part of you, well, actually, a big part of you is kind of bored with it. You are, I don't know, there's part of you that is just not feeling it. And I don't know if it's just because you, I don't quite know what it's saying there. You know, Okay, I'm going to do what I do with the other operation. I'm probably going to do this with all of them and take stock for a minute and then get back. So I have rehashed it. And I basically, there's not much more I want to add to it. I guess, I'm not sure I was right in saying that you're having a hard time making new friends or anything like that. I think that's more, that's more my situation than yours. Because I do think that you're happy, but yet you're not. I mean, you're happy and you're not. It's strange, you know. It's sort of like you feel like you've gotten everything you've wanted out of it, even though you are having some difficulties. I mean, that's not deniable based on what's here, and they do come from you're still being pretty new to this and still working on developing some techniques here. And I think part of that too, I mean, I think part of that, you know, just to speak from my experience, you know, part of that letting go of your emotion when you conduct is something that has to come after you feel more comfortable with the basics of things. You know, it's your personal nuance and stuff has to come after you have some basic experience with that, using those techniques. You know, so I do think that that's the focus of this, is that you are feeling less passionate about conducting, not necessarily because you feel, I mean, yes, partially because you feel restricted in your ability to express yourself, but I think it's saying that part of that ability, that inability to express yourself, comes from the fact that you just don't really know how yet, and it's not necessarily because it's a character flaw or anything like that. It's more you lack the basic techniques of how to do that. You're still learning those, you know. That's why you're in grad school, so that you can learn those things. So I mean, I think that's all I want to say about the second operation. Again, we're going to pull your significator out, and we'll move on to the third operation. I invoke thee, O, that thou wilt send Heru, the great angel, who art set over the operations of this secret wisdom, that he may lay his hand invisibly upon these consecrated cards of art, and that thereby we may obtain true knowledge of hidden things, to the glory of thine ineffable name. Amen. the third operation of the same question. Now, again, this operation, the third one, is the 12 astrological signs of the zodiac. And they are more governed by the natures of the signs themselves. They don't necessarily represent a specific area of one's life like the houses do. They more represent phases of energy, sort of what characteristic or energy force the situation will be affected directly by following the events of the second operation. So this is, again, also the midway point of the reading. Following this, we get further development of the question and then the conclusion, which is perhaps the most important of all the operations other than the first, because the first gives you all the background details. The interesting thing, too, is so far this opening of the key has not functioned in a way that seems particularly linear. In Operation 1, we started off, as you know, talking about your relationship to your family and the issues surrounding the divorce and probably how that has connected to your sense of emotion and expression of emotion. And the second operation talked more about where you are now in grad school. So the third operation is, I suppose, well, the next phase of things. I would assume that your significator might be here, and it is not, of course. Maybe here. No. Oh boy. How about here? Yes. Oh, we have a match. All right. Okay. So you are in the pile of Libra. And so this is ruled mostly by the Trump adjustment or justice. And the idea of Libra is of balance, of course, harmony, and usually impartial decision making. It is also sort of the idea of karma, that all things have to be in equilibrium, and for every action going along either a positive or negative side, we have to inevitably undergo the opposite of that in order to maintain the equilibrium of all things. Ooh. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now, covering the Libra pile is the Hermit. And so the idea is, I think, that following that the next step following what we just talked about in terms of developing some more skills with grad school, you do have the Hermit as far as Libra is concerned. And I think that is sort of saying that you will have to do some soul searching. I mean, not just in terms of sorry, I'm reading it in two different ways at the same time in my head. The Hermit, I think, is saying both that you will need to do some soul searching, but also that you will need to take some time to develop those skills, and it's going to be sort of on your own time and on your own of your own accord and on your own terms. It sort of says that you're going to take things at your own approach and follow your own instincts regarding how you develop. You are here as the Knight of Discs, and it says that eventually through hard work you will be successful. You will manage to overcome the difficulties that you initially had, and you will achieve some recognition for your accomplishments. This is going to very much rekindle your passion about this and your sense of purpose. It's also it has a chance of whatever money you might make through this might also give you some motivation. It also might have to do with feeling good about being part of something of quality, having reached a place where you will be able to say that your work, through your determination and steadiness, has produced something of quality and of beauty, and that's going to help refuel your motivation here. However, it's still going to, you're still going to feel like there's more for you to do in terms of your development and growth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you will continue to work, but in a way that's more about yourself. It's still not going to feel like you have done enough work on yourself and understanding yourself. And it may mean that you will be motivated to consider more, I almost want to say like therapeutic approaches, more holistic approaches to things. You're just going to do some self-work, in sort of, I guess, reviewing yourself and trying to get to know yourself better. Um, and I think that that's also going to fuel your excitement about what you're doing, because inevitably the result is to discover that you're meant to be doing what you're doing. You know, that life has led you here for a specific purpose that is connected to understanding yourself and who you are meant to be. Um, so the other thing is that it could have to do with some isolation. Um, you probably, to some extent, will be a little lonely, though the excitement surrounding your work will distract you from this, and you're probably going to be very busy and you won't be able to really think about it. Excuse me. But there is this idea of isolation, that you're going to be working on yourself, again, on your own terms, of your own volition. It's going to be very much about you and what you want to do and your personal development. Um, Again, to start the pairing, your work will become recognized and will garner you some recognition. You will start to feel more accomplished in your work and what you have done. Um, it does seem like you'll want to, I don't know. Um, I think it's also as a result of I guess, your pursuit of what you find beautiful as opposed to someone else. There's, I just get the sense that there's a lot to do because of, the idea of Libra here. There's a lot that has to do in this phase of the reading, and given the fact that you're in an art based career, that part of your acclaim will be on, uh, will have to do with having cultivated something of value. And I kind of said that before too, but almost like you will have, I guess, just I almost think it's more just like, you'll have come a long way, you know, and people will see that, your teachers will see that, your peers will see that you've worked really hard, and that you're going to grow a lot in grad school, and you're going to grow a lot in terms of your skills and your basic ability, and that eventually by the end of it you're going to be able to say that you can produce something that is good, and you're going to feel really good about that ability. The overall result of this, excuse me, operation is lust or Leo, and it does represent kind of pride and real ecstatic feelings about what you're doing, real passion for what you're doing, and enthusiasm for it, and not really caring at that point what becomes of it. Sort of just being so happy to be able to do what you're doing. Um, so this is a turning point, I think, based on what we just read in the second operation. The second operation being more about your being fresh off the boat, so to speak, and still learning new things. And it does say that you will be able to learn those new things quite well, actually, and you will do very well. Again, going back to the first operation, you have always been a very good student, and it is something that you pride yourself on tremendously, and it says that the practical work you will do through grad school is going to pay off and make your decision to have gone this route seem like it was a good one, which it was, clearly. Let success be your proof. Anywho, okay, so let's. I'm going to take a break, and then when I come back, I'm going to do the fourth and fifth operation.